Hello, my name is Bas and I'm here to give a tutorial on a Ditherpunk effect. It will allow you to make filters that resemble the original Game Boy, indie games such as Return of the Obra Dinn and Who's Lila, and even the full motion videos from the Sega CD. This effect only applies to video as I am not a game developer, and there's two specific methods, both of which have different benefits and will probably both look a little different depending on how much detail you require. Also, a friend told me it's only called Ditherpunk if there's two colors. Let's go! So obviously, the first thing you need to do is to pick a video. I have made a video right here. Alright, perfect. One important detail for the first method, you will have to cut everything you have in advance. So if there's any bloopers or any parts you wouldn't like to add, this would be the time to trim them. This will be very hard later. When you're done, you export this as an image sequence. And ideally also as a separate audio file. I'll show you how to do that. First you select PNG, then you select your location where you want to export your image sequences. You're going to export separate images, so make sure this has its own little folder. And to export as audio, you simply select MP3. Make sure you have both files in a safe location. Once you have exported an image sequence, you have to open one of the keyframes you like inside of Photoshop to test out your effect. Make sure you create an action sequence. You can do this by going to the Actions window in Window. You have to then create a little folder to keep your action sequence in. And then to create it, you go to the little plus sign here. You give your sequence a name. I'm going to call it tutorial. You're going to press record. And from now on, as long as this little record button is enabled, it's going to remember every action you change about this image. So the first set of actions you will have to record are about the resolution. If you have a specific system or console that you would like to emulate, make sure you figure out what the pixel resolution of these devices are. You can just Google it yourself. I'm going to use a random number myself, but for instance, if you want 300 by 300, you can make two actions. You make image size the first one, and then you go to image canvas size. You reduce the width to 300 as well. And now we have a square image. Make sure that these are always your first actions. And from here we're able to add the effect. So what we'll need to do from here is go to Image, Mode, Index Color Mode, and this is going to reduce the amount of colors that are visible in the picture. This is why we wanted to reduce the image resolution, because we want our pixels to be nice and big. So if you use an image sequence that uses transparency, if for instance you have yourself standing in front of a green screen and you want to put the filter on that, make sure to check transparency. And the way this works is transparency will now count as one of the colors. If you uncheck transparency and you put in two colors, obviously you'll have a light color and a dark color. But then when you add transparency, it's going to take one of the colors away, because one of the colors is, null, it's zero, it's no color at all. And then if you put it to free with transparency enabled, you're going to have two colors again. So that's how that works. Transparency is one of the numbers on the board here. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go to this little tab right here. You're going to select custom. And this is where you'll be able to craft a palette. If you found like a Game Boy palette online that you like, this is where you put it in by perhaps, maybe you just know the color yourself, or maybe you want to copy the little hexadecimal value here. I'll just make a quick, simple Game Boy-ish palette here. I want to make sure that I have the same shade of green to start with, so I'm gonna put it here. I'm gonna make it a little lighter. I'm gonna make another one that's even lighter than that. And then finally a white green for the bright values. So when I click OK, it's gonna look like this. I'm gonna uncheck transparency. I'm gonna reduce this to 4 colors. Yes, 4 colors. They're all green and they look like this. I think this looks very, very nice. So here is where things get complicated. If I wanted like a very specific palette that is not just one color with different values of light, this effect is very easy to break when you use it for a moving video. For instance, if I put the dark green to blue and make it a little gray, I put it right here, and then I press OK, you'll notice that it loses track of which color is the darkest color, and it's going to put blue basically in the middle. I do not want this. So if you are making a single image instead of an image sequence that will turn into a video later, this little flaw is very easily fixable. You just go to image, mode, color table, and the color table option won't generate any new pixel calculations. It'll just allow you to replace any color in the wheel. So if I wanted that little gray blue color, I can do it like this. So it won't actually recalculate where it put the blue. It'll just replace the darkest color that was already there. And then if I want the light green to be a little more yellow, I can do that as well. This makes it a little cleaner to create a custom palette. Here is the problem though. Once you add change color table to your action window, this will completely break the effect for video. I'll try to explain why. So basically how this works is once you go to indexed color mode and you press OK, it will have generated a palette, a color table, if you will. But when you go to the color table, I've noticed that often it will just randomly pick which color is listed first. And this is a problem. So basically how this is supposed to work is you're going to indexed color, you're going to experiment to create the palette you like. And once you have a palette you want to reuse every time, such as the Game Boy palette, you save it and then you record your action by just picking index colors and choosing the palette from here. So basically Photoshop will create a palette with the colors ordered randomly, but the palette you saved is always going from dark green to lighter green to lighter green to lightest green. So it won't actually know where to put all the colors and it's going to mess up your video. So once again, to reiterate, if you're going to make a palette, make sure it works as just convert mode. You're not gonna have to, you shouldn't make separate actions that each fine-tune the palette because it's going to break everything. But of course, if you found a palette that actually works using these three actions, you go to automate, batch, and you select the action sequence folder that you like, the set and the action. I called it tutorial, so this is exactly what I want. Then you select the folder where you kept the original image sequence you exported with Premiere, in my case. And then you select a different folder to export the Game Boy effect image sequence to. And you're going to press OK. And you're going to have a folder filled with every frame of your video, except it looks like this. So it's going to render for a while. This looks really weird because it's flickering between each original image being loaded in and also the one image that I've edited. This looks very weird, but it's normal. So once Photoshop is done rendering, you'll have a folder that looks like this, and unless there are entries inside of the folder that suddenly change around the palette, this should be everything you need. You're going to have to import these pictures as an image sequence inside of your video software. So you press the first one, you make sure that image sequence is checked, and you load it into your video software. So another weird thing about this effect, I've noticed that if I export an image sequence with Premiere, I edit it and put it back in, it's actually a little longer than the way it was originally. So you'll notice that even if I scale this up so that it fits the original picture, it's a little slower. I don't know if you can fix this. Perhaps you can fix this by, for instance, doing something with frame rate while originally exporting the image sequence. I have not been able to make this work. For now, we're going to use a quick fix. We're going to select our source file. We're going to speed and duration. And we're going to select the original duration and use Ctrl+C to copy it. Then we'll go to the file we created, and we're going to just speed it up the way we want. And unless you've added or removed bloopers, which you're not supposed to do, now it should be completely in sync. Look at this. Now that's a Game Boy effect if I've ever seen one. So before we're going to move on to method number 2, I do want to mention the one benefit the first method has, and this is for when you want to create a Sega CD full motion video effect. For this effect, you don't have to create your own palette. It's needed that you just reduce the amount of colors on screen. This one is actually simpler than the Game Boy effect. You just do everything that we did earlier, but when you get to the indexed color action, you make sure the colors are set to none, and you reduce the colors to about 16. You can even go up to 32, I think. I don't know the exact settings of the Sega CD, but this will allow you to, see, this is already too little colors, but this will allow you to create that old hardware effect for your video. And you can only really do this with method 1. So for method 2, we will be using After Effects, and you're going to need a little plugin called Pixelsworld. Pixelsworld is a little pricey, I'll admit, but I personally find it the most handy for the effect we're doing right now. You can buy it at the website. I'll link in the description. It's aescripts.com/pixelsworld. It's pretty simple, honestly. After you have downloaded the plugin, make sure that this file included right here, pixelsworld.aex, is inside of your media core folder. I'll try to put the exact directory on screen right now in big letters so you'll know where to put the file. After that, it should show up in After Effects. I am not a pro at installing plugins, but it worked for me. After you've installed your plugin and made sure that it shows up in effects and presets, you'll have to make sure it says Pixelsworld, and you have to drag that to your video that you want to edit. We're going to have to use a line of code, which I'll also try to very cleanly paste into the description. This is going to get complicated, obviously, but I'll try to explain exactly what parts of the code you'll be able to change and how and why. So to start, we'll look at these two little numbers inside of the first set of colons at the top of the code. These numbers are going to decide how big your pixels will be in the end result. If I enable my effect right now, you'll find that the pixels are pretty big. This is because I looked at my composition settings. I picked these numbers right here, and I made sure that the numbers at the top of the code were divisions of that resolution. So if I double this often enough, it'll be the original resolution. The smaller you make these numbers, the bigger the pixels will get. And I think this is a nice number, nice size of the pixels, but I'll give an example. If I turn this into 640 pixels and this into, 360 pixels, I think that's right. It's going to look like this. It's going to be smaller pixels. It's going to be basically a different effect. It's going to be more detailed. So if you look at the second value, which is set to 1.25 right now, note that it says lightness right in front of it. This is going to help you make the effect work better depending on how bright your video is. If I set it to 3 right now, that's more than double. You'll notice that there's suddenly a lot more black pixels and a lot less white pixels. So if you have like a really bright video, you're gonna have to turn this value up. And if you have a video in a very dark room, you're gonna have to turn this value down. I'll try to show what happens if I put it into a 0 decimal. 0.5. Look, now there's barely any black pixels left. So it actually looks very heavenly if that's the effect you're going for. But that's what that second value means. I'll put it back right now. And it's normal again. So then the next value that's actually important, and you're gonna love this one, it's going to help you decide the colors. You can choose as many colors as you want. As I managed to insert earlier, it's only really called Ditherpunk if it's 2 colors. But if you want a Game Boy effect, you're going to have to copy this right here. And you're going to insert 2 more colors. Because the Game Boy, the old green Game Boy, it had 4 values in the colors. So in order to create a palette, I recommend you use any graphical software you like. I'm using MS Paint right now because I figured it seemed more approachable that way. And I recommend you decide your palette in advance because you're going to have to insert each of these colors as a separate code. And that's going to be a hassle, so you want to make sure it looks good in advance. So once you have a palette that you're satisfied with, you're going to have to select the color that's going to be the darkest value. You make sure you copy that in the eyedropper tool. And you're going to have to look for these numbers right here. Most graphics software are able to define colors with these numbers. You're going to have to use a metric that goes from 0 to 255 as the biggest one. Right now it was set to 0. So we're going to copy these inside of the program After Effects. So I've made sure to insert the darkest color right here. It's 0822. If you have a color coming after the previous one, make sure that there's a comma behind the colon. And then once you get to the brightest value, you can leave the comma out. That's going to be your last set of values. So we're going to see what this looks like right now. As you can see, it suddenly has a lot of black pixels too. This is because 0, 0, 0 represents black, and 255, 255, 255, that's white. So make sure this palette is set up correctly. I'll cut away again. So I've inserted every color from the palette I've made earlier, and now it looks like this. Make sure it's in the right order. You can check that by seeing if the numbers go up as the code goes down. We're going to press OK, and now it looks like this. I haven't checked for this effect if the resolution is the same as the Game Boy. I've just used a regular video. But you should be able to make a perfect video using the Game Boy effect like this. And I think that's really cool. So now that we're done, a couple other notes to keep in mind. As you'll notice, there's this little brighter lines of colors right here. I don't really know why that's there, but you can easily crop it yourself, I'm sure. And another note that's very important for rendering, I would recommend always rendering this effect in an HD resolution. I wouldn't use low or high bitrate even if you export this in Premiere. Always use a high resolution because it will mess up the pixels if you're not careful with them. I want to take this final moment to emphasize that I did not write this code. It was put together by an old colleague who I used to work with. They often messed around with a website called Shader Toy, which is a website used to make effects and shaders just like this one, using only code. I asked if he wanted any financial compensation. They said they just prefer to do it for fun. I thought that was amazing because this video would not exist without them. I don't know anything about coding, and I was able to just explain my problems that I had with the code, and he'd be able to fix them in a day until I had exactly what I wanted. This is not a tutorial channel, it's an art channel, so if you watch my other videos, you're going to find a lot of animations rather than tutorials for effects like these. But feel free to like this video, it's going to help me out a lot in the long run. Bye bye!